during this forum, we also traveling virtually. So now we will discuss with our colleague from Apor Vilmos Catholic College, located in Hungary. So I'm pleased to welcome Katalin Tabi and Ágnes Streitmann. Both of them worked on the Internationalisation department of Apor Vilmos Catholic College in Hungary. And with them, they will give us their feedback about an international week and a blended intensive program that their college have developed. And just to remind you, a blended intensive program, a BIP, as we call it, is a combination of physical and virtual online mobility. So it can be useful and used for foster, intercultural dialogue and competencies. So welcome, Katalin and Ágnes. So you will present us this International Week and Blended intensive program implemented in your university. How does it work? Why did you implement this International Week and this intensive blended program? The methodology, the results, your recommendation. So now the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katalin Tabi, and I have my colleague Ágnes Streitmann with me. I am the head of international relations at our college, but I only started in this post last September, and before that Ágnes was the head of international relations, and she is also the head of the Department of Foreign Languages. And just briefly about the teaching profile of our college before we talk about our blended intensive programs. Apor Vilmos Catholic College is a small institution not far from Budapest, the capital city, and we provide initial teacher education of early childhood education primarily, but we also have study programs for pastoral service and social pedagogy. And you can find more information on our website. Now, turning to the presentation, the main points are going to be how to get started with the BIP. I will talk about the participants, virtual and physical components of the program, content and advantages of the program, and then Ágnes is going to share some concrete good practices that we've been doing actually, because we're still running this BIP, so once a year. And maybe just one last note to Veronique's and Kennedy's presentation. It was really good to hear that you're struggling with the same problems at your universities as we do. I can really agree with many of the points that you highlighted regarding internationalization. And we found that organizing Erasmus semesters and organizing BIPs help us to bring the world to our university to do internationalization at home, as the title of this webinar suggests, because I believe that this is really a good first step for many students to see that so the language skills might be enough for communication, even if they believe that maybe they don't speak, I don't know, English or German so well, but they can still use it, and this gives them courage to do some other Erasmus mobility later on. So let's see how to get, so I'm going to talk about BIP. This is a type of Erasmus short-term program. And I believe that when you start thinking about organizing a BIP, you really have to embrace interculturality. To invite people from other parts of Europe to our university and share our experiences with each other. This is very important, because informal education can have a great added value to university courses. They create a special alternative space for learning. And students can talk to each other and engage in activities together in out-of-the-box circumstances. And they can experience that learning goes beyond the classroom, that there are other languages, cultures, and other realities out there that may be worth knowing and learning about. In this sense, a BIP experience can really shape students' attitudes of lifelong learning. Now, once you've got this decision that you want to get intercultural, international, you have to find an engaging topic. This can range from the very specific to the more generic. BIPs can address a particular study area, which gives a strong focus, and you can rely on a common interest of the participants. However, we at Apor Vilmos College, we prefer to choose an interdisciplinary topic that can be useful for varieties of students who deal with who are going to deal with people in their jobs. Our topics so far have been intercultural dialogue through stories, and the other one is educating children to the love of nature. And Ágnes Streitmann will talk about these projects in detail later on. Both projects were designed to suit the needs of and interest of teacher students from a wide range of study areas. As a Catholic college, we find dialogue with other nationalities and the love of nature crucial for our common human future. These themes have been inspired by two documents, especially the church document published by the Vatican in 2013, Educating to Intercultural Dialogue in Catholic Schools, Living in Harmony for a Civilization of Love. And the other document I want to mention is the encyclical letter of Pope Francis, Laudato Si, from 2015. So these are really the basis of our topics. Now, once you've got the topic, you need to prepare a brief but informative information sheet that will give prospective participants an idea of what your BIP is about, what they can expect in terms of cultural and study experience, content. This preliminary information sheet is different from the detailed program, which is finalized and distributed to the participants at a later date. So maybe it's important to make this difference. Then you come to to advertising your BIP. Of course, it is a good idea to upload your BIP program to your own university website. However, maybe the most effective way to invite people is to send an invitation email to all your partner universities that you contact with. Erasmus coordinators can make sure that students and colleagues get informed about your BIP. However, if you want to advertise your BIP further to the wider higher education community, there is a useful website maintained by some Polish colleagues. This is called erasmusbip.org. And here you can find a long list of BIPs with some basic information and contact details. We tried this year the first time. For us, it didn't work out as we thought it could be, because we quickly had the required number of participants from our partner universities. So anyone applying to us through this website had to be rejected, which is a pity, but we couldn't do it any other way due to the number reasons. So we just can't accept everyone. So although this is a good opportunity, I suggest that you only use this to advertise your BIP on this website if you don't have too many partners, or you see that maybe you wouldn't have enough students. Okay, now once you've advertised it, applications will start to come. That's fine, but you cannot organize this BIP unless you've got at least 2 more partners. And these partners who agree to do this BIP with you. So you need some committed partners, and I believe that the best partners are from your established. So those universities you established a good bilateral partnerships with, and I would also say that having more students from the same university can help you to further reinforce cooperation on educational and professional levels as well. So it's better to have more students from fewer universities than single students from different universities. So for example, for us, until Brexit, we had an excellent partnership with the University of Winchester. We had a collaborative project course together, and their students also participated in our international weeks. And Ágnes will tell you more about this. So altogether, at least 2 partners are important, because the 3 partner universities can are necessary to organize BIP. Now, moving on to the participants. Participation can come from any European university. And as I said, at least 3 should be there, and they should agree to be partners. And normally there is just one university, in our case our college, who coordinates the whole program. However, this can be differently in other places, so you can organize the whole program together, or maybe one is the organizer, the other gives the venue, but these are, I think, a little bit more complicated. So we usually coordinate the program on our own, and sending institutions send the students or teachers as well who want to participate. The minimum number of participants in a BIP program is 15, although in theory the maximum of participants is not limited, but in practice the organizational support is maximized in 20 participants or more. So if you have more than 20 participants, you get the same amount of organizational support so it won't get any more or higher. Staff can take part either as teachers or participants, depending on how the BIP is organized. We have tried it both ways and found that both ways have their pros and cons. So, for example, having guest lecturers can widen our teaching horizon, but at the same time, it can be more demanding to harmonize the program, so it needs more preparation, coordination. As for the financial support and credits, perhaps it is good to know that one of the differences between international weeks and the earlier type of, which is an earlier type of short-term mobility, and BIPs, so international weeks and BIPs, is that either students or teachers can receive a daily grant for their participation, and there are also additional supports for travel and social and students with social disadvantages. So there is a lot of support for this BIP, for the blended intensive program, it is also new, perhaps, that BIP must award minimum 3 ECTS credits for the participants at their sending university. So this means that this short-term program is part of the students' training, so not something additional to it. Now, as for the virtual component, coming down to the course, the program itself, every BIP must contain a virtual and a physical component, but the proportion of the two is not defined. So it's up to the coordinating institution how you do it. We typically have one online day preceding the physical mobility, but of course this doesn't mean that they don't get any tasks prior to their physical part, but the tasks or assignments are usually for their self-study, so they can do these tasks at their own pace. We have already participated in other BIPs where there were a series of online lectures before the physical part of BIP, and I believe that it is more demanding for students because of their studies, because their timetable is full and it's difficult to find time to participate in online events. Whereas once you've traveled to a different place, then you're officially not at home. So the two parts of life, like your studies and this blended intensive program, don't interfere with each other. So that's why we find that one online day is enough for us. What do we do on this online day? We usually give time for introductions. Participants introduce themselves, we introduce ourselves, and we also talk about the lectures and workshops they're going to take part in during the physical part of BIP. And we also create opportunities for teamwork online. We get the students to mingle with each other, working in small international groups on a topic, talking about a topic related to the upcoming workshops. So they already start working and getting engaged with each other related to the theme of the week. Now, an online day is also important to prepare students for the physical part of the program. So apart from tasks and assignments, which I've already mentioned, they can also ask any questions they have or any information they need to know before they arrive. As now, the physical component, maybe that's the most exciting part, because then finally students can meet each other and really get into an intercultural dialogue with each other. A BIP should be at least 5 days and at most 30 days, excluding travel. Many universities organize one-week BIPs just like us, for the same reason as I mentioned earlier, that students cannot really get away for a longer period of time from their studies. So this type of mobility is short enough to leave all other duties behind, but it is also long enough to give students the Erasmus experience, a taste of European citizenship. BIP is actually the doorway to longer Erasmus mobilities. And this is true for teachers too. Some colleagues may have worries of participating in an international program, but a BIP can give them the confidence and the courage to go on an Erasmus teaching mobility in the future, perhaps. So I think BIP is a really good starting point for internationalization. Now, during the physical part of BIP, we have lectures and workshops, which are the backbones of our BIP. These provide students with educational input that they can use later on in their projects. They learn about innovative ways of preparing their end products. So students work together not only during the workshops, but also independently as a team during the week. This also improves their transversal skills as they're getting along with their project work. And I believe that transversal skills are really important advantages of a big week. Learning to communicate, to collaborate, to get more creative. So these are and to work in teams, to work on projects, to share responsibility. So these are very important skills that students can use in any jobs in the future. So sharing ideas, thinking creatively and critically, solving problems. So these are all the aims of working as teams between the lectures and workshops. Now, cultural programs are also important. Actually, they are really essential. Visiting a museum, trying out, for example, in Hungary, Hungarian folk dance, or going to historical places, all make it possible for participants to get immersed in and better understand Hungarian culture and society. And this is crucial for a successful intercultural dialogue. Of course, in the meantime, they also share their own experiences and their own cultural differences or similarities. So whether they have a culture shock in our country or whether they discover that, oh, we have many similarities. So these are all really beneficial to better understand each other, to better appreciate and respect each other's cultures. We also regard BIP as an opportunity for mission. So we are a Catholic college. Still, we don't include any particular religious programs in our BIP. But we try to create a welcoming atmosphere that really reflects our Catholic or Christian values, such as hospitality, inclusivity, fraternal love. So these are, I believe that students who come to our college feel this during the week. Last point, maybe related to cultural programs, is the free time. It's also an important element of BIP. Earlier, we packed our BIPs with lessons and events, and everything was organized. But then we realized that students do need some time of their own when they can spend time together informally, because this also enriches them. Otherwise, they get very tired and less enthusiastic by the end of the week. So now we really want to find a balance between study and free time, because this can be beneficial for everyone. When the week is coming to the end and the students have finished their projects, they present their projects to each other. So this is the presentation phase when and also the time for oral assessment. So this usually takes place on Thursday because they are normally in our college from Monday to Friday. And they present their projects, which really show what they learned that week, what they found interesting. So we get feedback through these presentations from them. And we also give them oral assessment of their work. And then on the last day comes evaluation. All participants come together one more time to reflect on what they have experienced together, and they talk about their experiences, their contributions, and we also ask them to complete an evaluation form, which is preferably online. And this helps us to improve our BIP in the future. So this is basically what I wanted to tell you about the structure of BIP. And now I would like to give the floor over to Ágnes Streitmann to tell you about our specific programs.
Okay, thank you, Kati. Hello, everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me as well to have the chance to share with you the good practices concerning the short-term international programs we organize at our college. Now, as Kati has already mentioned, actually we have an Erasmus semester offered to the students of our partner institutions in the spring semester of each academic year. And it always comprises a one-week thematic program. Now, for years, from 2015 until 2021, we organized international weeks in person at our institution, and then came COVID epidemic and intervened with this routine. Now, well, international weeks were thematic weeks, and they centered around different themes each time. And we invited students and colleagues from our partner institutions to participate. As Kati has already mentioned, it was based on the strong collaboration with the University of Winchester. In each year, we had project weeks when the English students visited us, and the Hungarian students traveled to Winchester, and they visited each other's institutions, performed presentations, had discussions, participated in cultural programs, and did pedagogical work in primary schools. And as I have mentioned, each time we organized these project weeks, international weeks, dedicated to different topics. Now, the first one was entitled Cool Tour. It was really a comprehensive program. We worked really hard to offer everything and try to include all the departments at our institution, simply to convey the situation in Hungary, the real situation in Hungary, and of course the beauties and cultural events in Budapest, for example. So students took part in discussions concerning minority topics and social issues in Hungary. They got information about gypsy culture. We have quite a big gypsy community in the northern part of Hungary, so that's reality. And we made the students familiar with the techniques and methods we try to help these disadvantaged groups. They became familiar with the Kodai method in music teaching, which is really a well-known method across the world. They participated in Hungarian folk art and craft activities. They learned Hungarian folk dance, and they visited schools, different types, preschools, primary schools, according to their interests. And of course, we went to Budapest and explored it. and visited the historic and natural beauties of the scenic Danube band. So we try to embrace as much as we can, and as Kati has mentioned, it was too much for them. They enjoyed it, but they got really, really tired. So next time we tried to grab less. Folktale traditions and traditional and digital storytelling techniques were favorite central topics as well. And students did textual analysis, explored pedagogical applications aimed at primary school children. They got familiar with different storytelling techniques, analysis tools, graphic organizers that support understanding the structure of a story and how to organize information and ideas efficiently. And they also performed stories using Kamishibai. They prepared story maps, story mountings, story strings for stories. And they learned how to apply objects like, for example, story pebble or story discs to their pedagogical work with children. And how to put together a story sack, for example, for a storytelling project activity. Now, artistic aspects were also emphasized, and the advantages of integrating storytelling with music, puppetry, drama, and art and craft activities were also in the center of the discussions. Now, we have got a nice video, which is only 2 minutes. I don't know we have got the time to present you this one. It was used in the digital storytelling session, and the international students worked together with primary school pupils to produce this video. So they gathered natural objects in the woods, and then with very simple language, they put together the story of Cinderella. So I don't know whether we have time for that, or we can just send the link and later you can watch it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ágnes, for this information. Just a question: how long is your video?
2 minutes.
So you have like 5 minutes more. So yes, I think it's fine.
Or perhaps we can send the link and the participants can watch it later.
Also.
Yeah. Okay. So Kati, if you put in the chat box the link, then you will have it and you can watch it. It's very simple, really. The text, the script is based on Sarah Phillips' well-known book, Drama with Children, and it's appropriate even for beginner children as well. So it's really useful how you can promote language learning. Okay, so then I go on very quickly. Yes, talent support through tales and drama, that was a good topic as well. You can be a hero. Yes, talent support is really important in Hungary. Actually, it's one of the most crucial educational issues now. So that's why we dedicated an international week to this topic. And we used folk tales, fairy tales. That's why the title was You Can Be a Hero. Okay. Now the online Ivy International Week. Well, you know that in 2020 there was a turning point, I think, in everywhere concerning internationalization. So during the COVID lockdown, we were obliged to explore and apply new innovative methods offered by online education, virtual exchange, and alternative ways of communication. Now, there were also benefits of this period. We acquired quite a few online techniques and applications. So we offered an online international week this time. And I think it was really a good week as well a great success. Okay.
We could cook together.
Yes, online.
Online.
Yes, so it was really
Hungarian
funny.
specialty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can go. Well, the main objectives of the International Weeks and of course the BIPs, the BIPs as well, is to encourage students' engagement in intercultural dialogue. Now, what does that mean? We support students to enhance their awareness of the values of their own institutions, local regions, traditions, and cultures. And at the same time, we develop student skills, competencies, and various types of intelligence in expressing their own cultural identities. And of course, it's a task as well for them to better understand and appreciate the cultural identity of others. And in this way, they can develop really a intercultural dialogue among each other, and they can develop their creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking as well. So it's important to be aware of one's own cultural identity and appreciate the other person's cultural identity. That's the main aim, I think, in it. Mm-hmm. The basic elements of our BIPs, as Kati mentioned already, the online day and the in-person thematic week. The online day includes, of course, the introduction part. Students introduce themselves using objects. So they select an object at home, their favorite ones, or something that can convey some message about themselves. They show it and they speak about the object, about themselves through the objects. And then follows some cooperative synchronous activities. Basically, here they present their institutions as well. So they work together, they get tasks, and they work together at the same time in the virtual space, and they use online apps for presenting their institutions. Then they present their products, and then we evaluate and discuss the products and the experience concerning it. During the in-person thematic weeks, on the first day, we always have an icebreaker activity if the weather is nice in the college garden. And on the first day, we usually have a thematic excursion in Vác. And in the evening, we have a welcome evening. Now, during the latest BIP, it was Hungarian folk dance because we realized that they enjoy it most. So that's why we chose this program for the welcome evening. The next day is usually a workshop day with lectures, presentations, interactive workshops, group work, students group work. And during the rest of the time, the program includes cultural events, school visits, mainly in Budapest. But we have got thematic programs in the historical natural sites of the scenic Danube Bend. For example, last time we had an excursion to Visegrad, which is wonderful, and other beautiful places. And on the last day, we say farewell to each other. There is the evaluation. And the big question is, what do you take home? And we share the experiences. So basically, that's the structure, the basic elements of the program. Okay, and very quickly about the first BIP at our college, which was devoted to the topic of intercultural dialogues through stories. the main aim was to make the students share experience, feelings about their attachment to their institutions, local places, and they used personal stories, local legends, and tales. Then they acquired techniques or shared techniques, how to do it, how to convey a story, how to tell a story to each other in a creative way. So they acquired and applied different storytelling techniques and intelligences. For example, kamishibai, story discs, digital storytelling, objects, so all kinds of storytelling techniques. And of course, we included the thematic excursions in Vác, Visegrád, and these were based on stories as well, including cultural and historical aspects. So that was the BIP in 2022. And the last one, it was dedicated to the topic, educating children to the love of nature. And the main aim here was to foster environmental consciousness, oikophilia, which means love of home. So environmental consciousness, we believe, is rooted in your love for your home. That's very important, I think. So global management of environmental protection works as well in a lot of cases, but it's very important if somebody knows that he or she has got her responsibility in it concerning her or his own territory, our home. And if you love your home, you will take care of it. And conservation issues were very important. Care of creation in early childhood education. That was an important topic through songs, rhymes, proverbs, and other activities. Role of outdoor space and school gardens in education was mentioned. And outdoor risky play was an important topic. Here, for example, Anji play, which is a method coming from China. And it is devoted to risky play, and it's an approach for children aged between 3 and 6, and it ensures the so-called true play for children. So it involves 5 main principles: love, risk, joy, engagement, and reflection. And basically, it focuses on enhancing, supporting independence and self-reliance of children in outdoor setting. Yes, and of course, outdoor games, drama, and storytelling activities were included. Here you can see in the pictures, in the second picture, some international students who performed a tableau here, and they are in the Vácrátót Botanical Garden, which is near Vác, and a beautiful place, really. Okay, and the last one. Yes, during this last BIP, the outstanding activities were, as I have mentioned, visiting Vácrátót, the botanical garden. The students enjoyed it very much, and the tasks there. We visited preschools and primary schools, and outstanding presentation and workshops were as follows: the risky play in an Anji play setting, as I have mentioned, the Chinese method; nature in music. It was really an outstanding interactive workshop, and of course the storytelling workshop was an enjoyable activity as well, where we used Kamishibai, Story Discs, Tangram, and the online application Draw My Life. You can see in the second picture how, well, not how to use it, but you can imagine how to use it. So you can draw the pictures while you are telling the story. Shadow play is a great favorite. And of course, dramatization is always a success. So these were the outstanding activities. And that's all. So thank you for your attention. We tried to embrace everything, to convey all the good practices and knowledge concerning VIPs, International Weeks, concerning our institution, Apor Vilmos Catholic College. Okay, thank you. And if you have any questions, of course, we are ready to answer with Kati.
Thank you, Katalin. Thank you, Ágnes. I see there is one question from José Miguel. In the chat. Dear Madam Tabi, your teacher are available for teach courses. We want to explore that possibility. If it's the case, could you give me your email, please?
That's a very nice invitation. We haven't tried that yet, but maybe here's the time. So maybe we could talk about it. So Jose Miguel, if you give me your email address, perhaps we could we could talk about it, or have an online meeting about this. It would be interesting.
Yes. And sorry, there was a message for me that the Cool Tour project week included the Esztergom Basilica. It didn't include, but it's not far, so it may include, because it's in the Danube Band as well, and it's a beautiful place, of course.
Yes.
Tokai wine, yes, you can taste it. It's really delicious.
We can see that José Miguel knows quite a lot about Hungary. He has been, Jose, you have been there before, no? So thank you, Ágnes and Katalin, for your presentation. We will share it, as said previously, with the participant and the other when we will share the replay of this forum. So thank you once again from our to our colleagues in Hungary, and we will continue and finish this forum, and we are going to Netherlands, and we welcome Isabelle Grosch. Welcome, Isabelle. Thank you for your patience. You are the last to take the floor, so sorry we are a bit late, but you know that's also one aspect of international events. People like to talk, and this is a space for that.
Yes, very good. Yes, thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and happy to meet you virtually. I'm indeed from the Netherlands, from Maastricht, which is in the south of the Netherlands. And I'm happy to present you a study that we conducted on the international classrooms in the Netherlands. So I'm going to share my screen. And of course, also thanks for your patience. I can imagine it has been a long afternoon for you as well. So I'll try to highlight the most important aspects, and I hope there's time afterwards to also engage in a discussion. So what I'm going to do is to present you the outcomes of a research study that we have conducted in the past 4 years, and it has been published this summer. And the main focus of our research was to investigate to what extent the composition of an international classroom consisting of domestic students and international students is related to the development of intercultural competences of domestic students. That's the overall theme. First of all, a general context. Why is it interesting and relevant to investigate the international classroom in the Netherlands? Well, in the past year, we've seen, or in the past years, we've seen a big influx of international students from all over the world to the Netherlands. Some reasons for it are that Dutch universities, they score relatively high on international rankings. But I think the most important reason is that we have a relatively big amount of programs that are offered in English. So 60% of our study programs are offered in English, and this results in a big amount of international students. So last year, the academic year 2022-2023 that has just passed, we had 40% of our overall first-year students being international. That's a really big amount. And if you look into the overall student population, then 15% are international. And with these numbers, the Netherlands scores pole position in Europe. So on continental Europe, the Netherlands has most of the international students. And as you can imagine, this causes quite some discussions in politics, but also in society. I brought you here some newspaper articles, some headlines, 2 Dutch ones from NOS and 1 international one from The Guardian. And what you see there is the public debate that evolves around this situation. So the opponents of internationalization, they say it puts lots of pressure on the housing market. It might go at the cost of the quality of education because many programs are in English, and it might be that conveying knowledge in English is not as effective as in the Dutch mother tongue. There might also be a reduction of Dutch, that less people learn to speak Dutch properly, which is actually well needed in the labor market. So these are some voices that opponents say. But on the other side, we also know that engaging in an international classroom can have positive effects. It might foster intercultural competences, it might foster open-mindedness, and also the ability to speak English and to practice English on a regular level. Well, in our research, we try to approach international from a positive point of view, and we look at the construct of the international classroom. Well, what is that? We have defined that construct as an independent learning environment. So we really see it as an environment where Dutch and international students engage with each other, and where they hopefully also learn from each other. And this is basically what we investigated. So on the right-hand side, here, you see the construct of cultural intelligence. And this is our construct that relates to cultural intelligence. That relates to intercultural competences. So what does it mean? People who are culturally intelligent, they're able to behave adequately in an international environment. And this construct has been developed by and Van Dijn and has been validated in many different research settings. So it's a quite well-known construct that consists of 4 different subdimensions. So the metacognitive and the cognitive dimension, they relate to our ability to have knowledge about other cultures. If you know about the rules and traditions in Hungary or in Spain, if you're able to speak another language, then you score high on the cognitive level of cultural intelligence. The third dimension that you see here, the motivational dimension, that relates to our attitude towards others. So to what extent do we enjoy interacting with others? To what extent are we open-minded to approach people from another culture? And the last one, the behavioral one, is basically our ability to shift behavior, to really behave adequately in new cultural contexts. So this is our main variable, and we were curious to what extent the proportion of international students in an international classroom is related positively to cultural intelligence. This is the new variable that we would like to investigate. In academic literature, already a lot is known about internationalization at home activities. So all types of learning activities that we as educators do to train intercultural competences. Think, for example, about lectures on cross-cultural differences, but also the example that we just heard, international weeks, blended education to train intercultural competences. All these activities we have summarized as under this variable. And we already know that activities to prepare students to be interculturally competent, they are positively related to CQ, but less is known about the international classroom itself. So to what extent does the mere exposure to students from a different culture affects the intercultural competences of domestic students? And the international classroom is in that sense interesting under the umbrella of internationalization at home activities, because even though domestic students, in our case Dutch students, stay at home, they might still be exposed to internationalization by interacting with international students. So that's why we also relate that study to internationalization at home. Well, I mentioned already there's not much known about the relationship between an international classroom and intercultural competences. What we've done is that we looked into the literature and we found the theory of contact and cooperation. And that theory has been developed by Apor in the 1950s. And it says that if a majority group, in our case the Dutch students, interact frequently with minority groups, so in that research international students, then this will evoke positive feelings towards the outside group, which is in our case the international students. So this is what we've known, and we also looked into other studies, and what they found is that the more domestic and international students interact with each other, the positive it is for their friendships, for the prejudice they have, their orientation towards outgroups. So we see that there is some positive relation between a majority group, the domestic student, and the minority group. And that's also why we developed the first hypothesis. We assume that the level of CQ, cultural intelligence, is positively related to the proportion of international students in class. So the more international students there are in a classroom, the higher the level of CQ would be. That's the first hypothesis we had. The second one we tested was based on a statement that has been done by Betty Liesk, who says that informal learning that would happen in an international classroom is not sufficient. It always required both the informal learning that just happens when Dutch and international students connect with each other randomly, and also the formal learning. That is also necessary. And formal learning are all the learning activities that we design to actually train intercultural competences and that we eventually also assess. Looking at the literature, we can distinguish two different types of training methods. First, there are passive training methods, such as lectures on cross-cultural differences. And second, there are experiential training methods. If we look into passive training methods, they are really cost-effective. It's easy to convey a big amount of information on cross-cultural differences by giving a lecture. And what we see is that this mostly trains the cognitive dimensions of CQ. So what we know about the rules of different cultures, about the ecosystem of another culture, about the language. It doesn't train so much our behavior. For that, it would be helpful to engage in experiential training methods, where students actually have the opportunity to experience and reflect on their own behavior, to get to know other behavior and to test other behavior. And what are effective modes to do are simulation games or role plays, where a student needs to play a role to interact with a person from another cultural background. And this really helps to train the motivational and the behavior part of CQ. So hence we defined the second hypothesis, in which we assume that internationalization at home activities, and on that slide you see the activities that we tested, they are positively related to CQ. And last but not least, we looked at the interaction effects, and we assumed that if a student is part of an international classroom and engages in internationalization at home activities, then these students show higher levels of CQ than those who did not engage in an internationalization at home activity. How did we test that? Well, we made use of a measurement tool that's called the Global Mind Monitor. This is the survey. 1 second. I'm sorry, that was our little one, the little baby that is hungry, but he's with dad, so it should be fine. How did we measure it? We made use of the Global Mind Monitor. It's a survey that is developed to test intercultural competences, and the outcomes of that survey can be used by practitioners to engage in a discussion with students. So based on a score that you receive from that Global Mind Monitor, you can then discuss what does that score tell you about your intercultural competences. And in that Global Mind Monitor, the variable of CQ, so cultural intelligence, is also included. And in our research, we saw that the dimensions that we assessed are reliable. So what we defined as a dependent variable CQ can be used as such a variable. To our sample, we had quite a big sample. We collected data over 4 years from 2017 to 2071, and we ended up with a sample of more than 10,000 students, of which the minority were Dutch students. And these students, or the sample that we collected in 11 different universities in the Netherlands, ranging from the south in Maastricht up until the north in The Hague. So we have quite a big range of universities where we could collect data from. The majority of our students were female, and also quite some of them had been abroad, for example, in a semester abroad or on holidays before they actually started to study in the Netherlands. What you see here is the proportion of international students in every student's situation. So for each student, we looked to what extent he or she is exposed to international students. Let me give you an example. What you see here is that from our sample, about 450 students had no international students in their classroom. This number shows that more than 3,000 students were actually exposed to a classroom that had between 30 to 40% of international students. So quite a high amount of students in our sample were in a very international classroom. And this is also a bias we need to consider when interpreting our results. Our sample had higher standards of international students than the Dutch average, which was just about 15%. So keep that in mind for later. Then the big question, what happens at the class level? So we investigated the relation between internationalization at home activities on CQ and the exposure to an international classroom. And what we saw is that 7% of the variance that can be seen in CQ scores can be related to the class they belong to. Let me feed you with some more numbers. What you see here are the learning activities, so all the training interventions that we had. And you see that for all learning activities, be it workshops on intercultural competences, be it talking about different cultures, all of them are positively related to cultural intelligence. So in that sense, our hypothesis has been confirmed. What you see here is the class level. So this is the interesting variable that we were looking at, the composition of the international classroom. And what you see is that for the dimension of motivational CQ, so your attitude towards others, your open-mindedness towards others, this is positively related to the classroom you belong to. What does that mean? If a Dutch student is exposed to an international student frequently, then this relates positively to their attitude towards others. Unfortunately, we couldn't find these effects for the other three variables. So being exposed to an international classroom does not significantly relate to knowledge about other cultures or to the behavioral dimension. It mainly relates to the motivation only. And this is a summary of what I just told you. So the internationalization at home activities were related positively to all four dimensions of CQ. Whereas the international classroom in itself and the composition of it was only related positively to motivational CQ. Discussion, to summarize it. What we saw is that these learning activities, they have a clearer and much more consistent effect if you would like to develop intercultural competences. However, if you have international students in class, then for us as teachers, as practitioners, it definitely makes sense to make use of them and to include the perspectives of an international students in your discourse and in your class activities. Dahler-Dierdorf summarized it as follows: if we want to develop intercultural competences and if we want to make sure that our students can interact better with people from different cultures, then you should start with their motivation to interact with others. And in that sense, the international classroom can build very useful starting point. As Dierdorf says, only if you are open and interested to connect with others, then you can also start learning about others, so build up knowledge about different cultures, and this will later on also affect their behavior. Implications, I already summarized it a bit. For us as practitioners, it's very useful to make use of different perspectives from class. And what we also know from research is that reflection stimulates learning. So one advice we can also formulate is that whenever students engage in an international experience, it also helps them to reflect about it, be it with discussions, with debates, with written blogs. All these reflection activities, they relate very positively to growth and intercultural learning. And the third point that we found is that for us as teachers, it would also be helpful to focus on the different dynamics that happen within an international classroom. And these dynamics are caused by language barriers and language differences. International students might be used to different educational systems. They might have a different working attitude. So it can be quite challenging as a teacher to teach in an international classroom. But what is helpful is, first of all, to be aware of it. There are challenges, make use of them, work with these challenges. But secondly, also make use of the potential that the international classroom can offer to stimulate intercultural learning. Of course, some limitations. I mentioned one of them, which is that we didn't find any relationship for the cognitive and the behavioral dimension of cultural intelligence. Another limitation is also that we worked with self-reported measures, with surveys only, but we didn't really go into the classrooms. I think that could be a follow-up study, that we enrich the quantitative data that we collect via a survey with actual observations, with interviews, with focus groups, to get a better feeling and grip on what's actually happening. Since the self-reported measures that students gave, they can also, of course, contain some bias. Some students might score themselves differently, also based on their cultural background. What a high score, a 10, is in Germany, for example, would not relate to a 10 in the Netherlands. Another limitation is also that our sample was, in that sense, biased, that we had relatively big amount of international students, which results from the study programs that we investigated. So in our survey, mainly study programs that do have lots of international students participate. So the conclusions that we can draw, they mainly relate to international classrooms with many international students. And of course, there's also the effect of reversed causality. So we see that there is a relationship between being part of an international classroom and being interculturally competent, but it can also be the other way around, in the sense that those students who are already scoring high on intercultural competences therefore also choose to go abroad or to engage with others within an international classroom. And this is we cannot distinguish yet. Something that is very common, unfortunately, in social sciences, the issue of reversed causality. If you're interested to read more about it, to learn more about it, our research has been published this summer in the International Journal of Intercultural Relations. And if you would like to dive into that, I'm happy to share it with you. These are my co-authors, Ankie Hoefnagels. She is head of the research center that I'm working for. And we've conducted that research together with Joris Bohne and me, Isabelle Grosch. So in case you have any follow-up questions about the tool that we used or the research in itself, please don't hesitate to contact us. Yes, so that was me and our research in a nutshell. And if you don't have any questions, I do have one, as I'm curious to see how you in your countries perceive the international classroom, and how you see the cooperation between domestic students and international students to happen. Any input is really welcome.
Thank you, Isabelle. You can reply to the question of Isabelle in the chat or using your microphone. So it's an open event. So feel free to respond to this question. Yes, Katalin.
So thank you, Isabelle, for this really inspiring presentation. We have an Erasmus semester, and every spring I have a course in intercultural competencies there in this semester in English, and what I find is that contact and cooperation gets smooth only by the end of the Erasmus semester. So at the beginning, it's really difficult to have a breakthrough. And it's partly because our students are reserved or shy, maybe their language skills they feel is not sufficient enough. But then also the students who come to us, for example, from Spain, so they prefer to talk in Spanish between each other, and even if you say that please talk in English in the class, so it's difficult for them. Or Turkish students the same. So it's not. So yes, it needs some time.
Yes, it needs time, and often also the facilitation of a lecturer or a committee, a student committee, who's helping to facilitate and to make contacts.
Yes.
Second.
There is, Isabelle, one comment for you in the chat. So, dear Madame Grosch, congratulations for your presentation. You have illustrated me. In my case, in my case, it's the first time I listen about the concept of cultural intelligence. Could you tell me how you can start in my university to incorporate that concept for a real contribution? So it's a question of Jose Miguel Tapia in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very complex question. Sorry, I have my little one here.
Fine,
Willst du
fine.
dazu kommen? He needs a paper.
It's time also for him.
It's a bit time indeed.
Ganz blau Papier, ein ganzes blaues.
Ich habe hier kein blaues Papier. Nimm mal das oder so.
Aber das wird der Sieg von den
Eine
Fliegen.
Sekunde, ich muss kurz was erzählen. So, cultural intelligence, I think there are two approaches to it. There's of course a survey to actually measure it, which I can send to you. But I think what's even more important is to start a discussion about it. So students can fill in a survey,
Sure.
but it actually helps them to have teachers to interpret it. So I think that, and that opens up a whole new discussion how to actually incorporate intercultural competence within a curriculum. If you already have training methods or whatsoever, then you can of course also measure it by means of CQ, cultural intelligence. But I think then we also need the loop. If we have measured it, can we also help our students to learn from it and to improve it? Thanks, my child is sweet. Yes, not always a good listener yet, but he's 4, so he can still learn. I'm sorry for the interruption. I was hoping there would be a bit more patient.
No worries. We are in family, huh? We belong to the same family. Yes. So another question. So I will translate it. The experience of connection, contact between international students is unique and creates and required a necessary retrospective between the students which share the same classrooms. We share same classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
You want I translate it again, or it's fine?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yes. The experience of contact between international students is unique and creates a necessary retrospective among the students who share the same classroom.
Yeah. I agree. Is that something that you experience in your own university, or is something that
es algo que es una experiencia propia a su universidad? ¿Es algo que ha observado en su universidad?
Yes, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, so I think it was more sharing her own experience, how she sees that, and I agree with it. I see that also in our Dutch classrooms.
Yes, and Isabelle, do you allow us to share after this forum, after closing this forum, your article among the participants?
Yes, I would be happy to, of course. Yes, I think you have it,
yes,
Nicola. Otherwise, I can also forward it to you, but I think you have it, so
I have it. And if the participants would like to contact you, if they have questions after reading completely your article, you agree also that we share your contact, and if they want to know more about your approach, or if they have some questions or advice also, like Jose Miguel.
Yes, no, I'm happy to think along with you. I can only speak from our experience, how it is in the Netherlands, but that sharing of experience is hopefully already helpful. Yeah, happy to share any insights. These are our email addresses, but you can also find them on the research article that is shared by Nicolas.
Fine.
Yes.
Very good. So I would like to, if there is no more comments or questions for Isabelle, I would like to sincerely thank our speakers of today. I see that some of them are still with us, like Patricia, like Jorge. Katalin is also with us, Ágnes. Sandra has to go because she has to attend to a meeting with the rest of the team of IFCU, to be honest, because the next General Assembly of the Federation will take place in Mexico, in Guadalajara in 2025. And we are already starting to work on this big event. So thank you very much for all your contribution to give us your time and to give us your feedback regarding this virtual mobility, virtual experience of internationalization. It's very important to have this moment of exchange and dialogue to inspire all of us, to inspire maybe also your own practices of internationalization in your own university, to see to discover new insight, new way of doing. So thank you very much, and I wish you, for the one in Europe, a good evening, for the one in Latin America, a good day,